Good morning. We're sitting here with Robert Ricks, one of the forecasters, the senior forecaster at the National Weather Service in Slidell. We're actually talking about the flood of '95, and you can give us an insight of what happened during the flood of '95, since you were here and you actually were working in the RFC side at that time.
Yes, I remember. Well, I remember it just as if it was yesterday. It's hard to believe it's been 20 years already. It's passing, and we had just moved here, my family and I, back into the Slidell area after being away at other office assignments around the country prior to that. And so we were only back a few months. I had just started working at the River Forecast Center side as one of the original what we call the HAZ units, the Hydrometeorological Analysis and Support units. And our primary job over there was to gather up the rainfall information in support of the river forecasting. And during that particular event, I remember on May 8th, we had just come out of what was a well forecasted heavy rain event, of which the South Shore basically got hit pretty hard. And I want to say the amounts were like in the 10 to 12 inch range on the first day. And so that was to be expected. That kept us busy because we were analyzing all that rainfall and dealing with the aftermath of that particular event. The most striking thing, however, was as a forecaster having to recognize the pattern for the second night. And that took some convincing of folks because climatologically speaking, you don't get two big rain events back to back, one night over the other in the same location, relatively speaking. So that was a challenge, and so basically we went from analysis and retrospect and then evolving during the day in a short time frame to a forecast posture where we were having to spin up for the next event. And I remember working that event, and I was the duty HAZ forecaster at the time, and we had to come up with some hard decisions. And it was like I was recognizing a pattern that says, nothing's really changed. We're going to recover. It looks like we have a high probability of seeing 10 plus inches of rain again. So I remember that morning, later that morning, setting up a conference call while surrounding forecast offices, Jackson and Lake Charles, I believe it was on the call, and Slidell office, which, remember, I was at the River Forecast Center side, so I had to talk to the other side of the house as well and say, hey guys, we'd like to have a conference call. And we involved the Storm Prediction Center, and it was also the Meteorological Center and headquarters, the ones who come up with the heavy rain forecast outlooks and everything. So it was Wes Junker in Washington, D.C. that I was talking to over the phone. We met here in the library, had a conference call, and with that, I was trying to convince them. I said, things that haven't really changed. We still have the stationary front over the area. Looks like the moisture is going to return in earnest overnight, and then in doing so, we're probably going to see another round of rain. And it took some convincing because everybody was trying to remind me, well, you don't get two events in the same location back to back like that. And I said, well, this looks like an exception. So it took some jumping through hoops, if you will, to get everybody coming together, and we did. We finally came to a consensus saying, okay, let's start playing this up for the next night. And so we already had floods and watches in effect, and that was a good thing, and kept them going. A lot of places were already in flood. And then the second night evolved, and sure enough, right at sunset, thunderstorms started bubbling up over Lake Pontchartrain, and then it started evolving and expanding across the Mississippi Gulf Coast area. And once it started, it just stuck there. It was amazing to see the persistence of the rain and the heaviness of the rain for so long. I mean, I remember it going for several hours with the same intensity, extreme intensities, and the water was just, already saturated ground from the night before. It didn't take long for that to really cause flood issues across a large area.
Now, technology, as far as I know, I came into the Weather Service in '94. At the same time, the NextRad radar came in. So how did that change the game plan, or was that a game changer as far as forecasting and actually having real-time data for you guys?
Right. I mean, it was a game changer because the rainfall radar estimates, something that was not available prior to NextRad. That was a great thing, but we were still feeling it out because there are some issues with maybe over analyzing it on the radar at times when you got heavy rainfall, especially if it's mixed with hail. And so you could get some exaggerated amounts on the radar presentation. Well, it just so happened that in going back and looking over the data after the fact, it was pretty reliable. It was showing this big, huge corridor that was 10, 14, in some cases 20 inches of rainfall accumulated, and it pretty much nailed it as far as the location. It did a very good job of locating where the heaviest rains fell, and that was not too hard to do because it was over a large area. But it also, amount-wise, it was pretty close, and it ended up being pretty reliable out of that event.
Now, if anybody wants more information about this event, you actually did a paper, co-authored with several other forecasters. How can we find that information?
Yes, we did pretty much an internal service assessment report whereby we evaluated how the forecast process played out, what warnings and everything were issued, and the effectiveness of our service upon the community for the taxpayers. It was not a formalized, called up by headquarters type assessment. We decided we'd do it internally because we wanted to see from best practices what worked, what didn't work. And so we did a paper. It was, I want to say it's about 14, 15 pages long. It's pretty thorough. It has graphics and everything, some of the radar rainfall estimates, and some of the terminology and technology that we were using at the time. And keep in mind, it's 20 years ago. So that paper is available. It's on our website, on our library links for Office Library Studies and Research, and that's NOAA Tech Attachment, Tech Memorandum SR 183. It is available to the public on that website, and just click on it and read it, and there's quite a bit of information there.
And lastly, how does this compare to non-tropical rainfall? It's non-tropical floods. How does it compare across the United States? Was this a costly
This
event?
was one of the costliest non-tropical events in U.S. history for a single event. Now, it could be said that the 1993 flood, which impacted a very large area across middle America, that was over several rounds of rainfall over basically a month and a half of repeat rains. This was a single event, if you will. It was 2 days in duration, May 8th, May 9th. And so for that one brief period of just 2 days, it ended up being the costliest. At a price tag roughly a billion with a B, $1 billion of insurance claims. So if you even double some of that, it's potentially could have been close to $5 billion if uninsured was included as well.
And in today's money, that's around $8 to $9 billion.
That's correct, and that's on par with, let's say, a Category 1 or a Category 2 hurricane in most cases that hit populated areas. And put it in perspective, I mean, Katrina was so far out there, but that was a tropical event. But to have something in the billions just from a rain event, that's pretty remarkable.
Okay. Thank you, Robert.
Okay, and 20 years later, here we are.